Hey, folks, and welcome to the Email Marketing Podcast. Normally, I have my little jingle at the start, and normally we have a guest on the show, but today I'm going to use this opportunity to do a little bit of a rant and just kind of share something that came to mind today, hiring a amateur copywriter, and something that happened. And I just think that this would be probably one of the most powerful things that if you're just getting started in copywriting, if you are a young entrepreneur, if you're, maybe you consider yourself a pro, you've gotten some good results, but you just don't really know why you're getting the results. This could be the most powerful stuff you've ever heard, and I know that's cliche, but I'm dead serious. This could be really amazing. So let me dig in for a second. So when I first started writing copy and learning how to write copy professionally, I was following some of the greats. And if you're like me, you probably start handwriting, writing down, whether it be with a keyboard and a Microsoft Notepad or Microsoft Word or or Google Docs, or whether you wrote it out with a pen, or whether you just started even stealing elements of traditional proven long form sales copy or email marketing from the pros, but you didn't really know why. You're like, okay, well, I know that when you use numbers, things work. So, the 5 proven ways to blank. You know that big benefit headlines work. You've learned about question headlines. You've learned about, what makes clickbait work. And you've looked at, famous clickbait and maybe tried to Me Too model that, or, copy things along a similar stream. There's something missing between the formulae and the things that we know in the copywriting world work and the real reason why they work. And this is, I kid you not, I'm going to share a golden nugget right now that makes the difference between being an amateur and being a pro. The difference is that if you've ever done any traditional form of actual sales, if you've ever hopped on the phone with a customer and tried to close a deal, or if you've ever directly worked with your ideal customer. So let's pretend for a second that you're selling, let's just pick something out of the blue. Let's just pretend for a second that it's dog food, just because that's something I've played with in a niche of before, but it really wouldn't matter if it were supplements or if it were, hypnosis or whatever you're trying to sell. It wouldn't matter if it was selling a car. But let's pick a niche for a second and dig in. So you could use all the standard templates and formulas proven, and people will probably think they'll experience, even if, they'll experience a disconnect in your copy. And I'll explain why. If you don't know a little bit about this audience, if you've never spoken to them before, or if you can't get inside their head, you're just not going to be able to actually write stuff. And those formulas, they actually only work if you know that audience. Maybe I'll even use a deeper example, but let's play with the dog thing for a sec here. So I want to do this rant because I hired a junior copywriter, and I think they're going to turn out great, but they're still a copy cub. They're still learning. And what I noticed was that they're doing a lot of the right things, kind of almost like, in painting or engineering. If you ever tried to play the piano like an engineer, it would sound like the notes timed perfectly with the right spot in the song, but it wouldn't have artistic flow. Now, if you ever listened to any amazing musician, you'd know that, the poetic license that, Prince or, Freddie Mercury or, some famous author throws into their stuff is just not replicatable in the same way unless you have the same kind of talent. The same is true with copy. You see, if you understand, let's go back to that dog thing like I mentioned. Let's just dig into that for a second. So I want to write something to appeal to people who buy expensive dog products. Well, right off the bat, I know that they are women, traditionally. They're usually over 40, so we have to kind of get into that mindset. Now, if you understand age dynamics, then you know that, younger people have highly different priorities than older people. So you need to study those priorities and understand where they're at in life. So they're at an age right now where they don't care what other people think. Okay, they're also at an age where they've been there, done that, and they kind of want to spoil, themselves and their dog, and they feel like they've earned their chops in life. They feel like they also love cute things and they love that animal, and so they want certain things for that animal. They want that animal to be happy. They want that animal to live longer, and they want things that make them look cuter, but obviously without sacrificing their health. But I mean, anyway, the point is that before I even write that subject line or that headline, I have to stop for a second and think to myself, like, who am I writing to, and what matters to them? What do they care about? And what are they feeling, and what kind of conversations are they already having in their head? And what are they already spending money on? And, how do they word things? How do they speak? What are their biggest concerns? And once you have all that stuff, then you can look at this headline formula stuff, and you can look at the, traditional copywriting methods of big benefit, blah, 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 and start going, okay, well, yeah, I can write about that big benefit, but my audience doesn't care about all these other certain big benefits. You can write about a pain point, like, for example, you could write about, why do they hide their pain? Or you can write about, you can write about, here's something every dog owner knows, but most people don't do. And, you can actually write that, and it will be exciting. Now, so the first part is, you come up with the hook, you tell a little story, then you have to transition to the offer. And here's another thing where, junior copywriters often get this completely wrong. They're like, they can usually write, sometimes they can come up with some decent hooks, sometimes they can tell a decent story, but then it's like all of a sudden you go from story to buy my stuff, and you can't do that. You just can't. What you need to do is, like you're telling a story to your best friend, okay? So if I called up my best friend right now and I wanted to sell him something, the first thing I do is say, Peter, so let me tell you something that happened today and in the news, and it's really shocking. And you know what? I've seen, based on point A, point B, and point C, that this is going to shape everything. Okay, it's going to change the world. Here's the problems I'm seeing happening. And I would really make him worry and be really genuinely concerned, because it's coming from me, and with a sincere and honest voice, he's going to believe that this is true stuff. Which, of course, it would be, because I wouldn't make stuff up. So I would, as a copywriter, you'd have to research that stuff. But anyway, so then the next step is, so I tell this crazy story, whether it's about dog pain or whether it's about the markets and, what's going on with cryptocurrency or something. Then the next thing I have to do is I have to, before I go and make an offer, I have to say, there's a bridge piece, and say, but I found a solution. And I definitely don't think it's this. I don't think it's that. Let me tell you why I think this solution really makes sense. And I would kind of state some points of why I think it makes sense. And then I would say, if it were me, I would highly recommend this thing. But the transition from story to offer really has to be done properly, or it's just not going to make any sense. I see so many times, a person might do a story, and it's a really great story, but then all of a sudden it's like shove product at end. And it really needs to transition to, what does the story and the pains have to do with this recommendation, and why is this the next logical step? And what objections would they have to that next logical step that you can throw in there and say, well, and I know you're probably thinking to yourself that, this is a great idea because it looks like quick money, or this is a great idea because, it looks like, the cheaper option, or it looks like the best way to save some money, or whatever. But let me explain why it isn't. And what I highly recommend you do right now is pick up this thing. Here's why. but don't take it from me. Here's a few other credible sources. But the offer transition is also really critical. You can't just slap product B or A on the end and just think people will order it or buy it. If you're in an email, it makes sense to be to try and language things coming from the place of, a personal letter, or coming from this place of, here's an interesting thought, here's something you didn't know before, here's a problem, here's, one of our highly recommended solutions, here's a product that ties into that solution, here's why, but really actually connect all the pieces and make sure they make sense. So my rant for today, the only reason I'm kind of speaking this out here, and maybe it's a little bit disorganized, but the 2 points I want to make is, number one, you grab every copywriting book under the sun, and you take a street cred level, experienced copywriter, and you take somebody who's read 100 books, and I guarantee you that street cred copywriter who's done this, been there, got the t-shirt, is going to kill somebody who's read all the books and understands the formulae. It's like trying to understand humor. Like, you can't just read a book about humor and think you can be funny. It just doesn't work that way. So, and just like humor, actually, a perfect example, humor is extremely personal. The jokes that I tell with my closest friends, and the jokes that I tell with clients, and the jokes that I tell with my team are all totally different, because I know my audience. I can read my audience, and I can tell if, dry humor is going to work, if puns are going to work, if dark humor is going to work, or whatever type of humor, or, locker room humor with, a couple of close guy friends or whatever. I can read my audience, and the same is true with copy. Like, when you're writing to women, you can be a little bit more emotional. You can talk about the squishy feelings. You can, talk about, the emotions around the decisions. Whereas with guys, or say if you're writing something to woodworkers, you really want to get down to the brass tacks of, how is this going to save me time? How is this going to save me money? How much easier is this going to be? How much more can I focus on my craft and less on what I'm working with as a tool, and, focus more on my end goal, that kind of thing. But if you know your audience and you can get in their head, I could probably do an entire podcast about how do you get inside somebody's head? How do you start thinking like they do? What are their priorities in life? What things do they hate? And how can you write a message that gets into the conversation that the customer is already having in their head? What makes their decisions? I cannot tell you how valuable it is to get on the phone with real customers and ask them questions and learn their style and their approach and what matters to them, what doesn't matter to them, what they're trying to accomplish, how they learned it, why they got into that, and then write a message that transitions through all those pieces. So I hope you found some of this valuable. I'm sure it'd probably be worth actually digging deeper into this. But if you have any questions, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, can you just expand on certain things? Can you talk about, some proven formulas? Like the can't stay here, must go there, or the attention, interest, desire, action, or whatever. Or can you dig deeper into how to write an offer, or how to kind of create those transitions? Or maybe you're just curious about how do you get inside the customer's head, and how do you learn, like, who they are as a person, what makes their, how do they make their decisions, and what are their priorities and their pain points and their passions, and what things that they're driving towards and their goals. If you have any of those kind of questions, drop me an email at info@answerswanted.com, and I will be happy to answer those and maybe do another episode about those. But before you take a stab at any of your own copy, ask yourself, like, if your best friend, if your wife, girlfriend, mother, father, somebody close to you, anybody you know, had, a need for what you do, would you forward this message on, or did you just slap it together and it follows the formulas, and you're just trusting that these formulas will do what you want them to do? Because if you lean on the formulas, I tell you, copy will not convert. The best copy I've ever seen in my life was written off the cuff, like the guy was talking directly to his ideal customer, and like he didn't care about what they thought of his voice or his, you know, whether he, used the right kind of headline formula or the right kind of bullet points or whatever, because that just totally takes the taste out of things. The ideal best copy in the whole world, the best email copy, the best lander copy, the best, Facebook ad copy, anything is really going to, you know, almost like a Hollywood drama, it still has to have sort of an introduction. It has to lead with interest and intrigue and uh, wow factor, like any Hollywood movie does. Then introduce some kind of a conflict, and then there's often a conflict resolution and a resolve, and then there's that relief in the end. But it has to introduce a problem, introduce conflict and challenge, and then hopefully resolve that conflict and challenge and tell something really interesting. And that's the only, and really copywriting isn't any different. That's the same approach. And I mean, you can only imagine, like, somebody wrote a Hollywood movie where, they literally just followed the same story format. Hallmark movies get in trouble for this all the time. Girl meets guy, but there's a problem. Oh, and there's a cute dog. Oh, but in the end, they fall in love and everything works out in the end, blah, blah, blah. People laugh at them for following that formula, but their stuff still gets results. Now, on the flip side, what if you heard somebody, or if you heard of a movie where, you know, they create an interesting introduction, it's interesting, it's neat and new and creative, there's a problem that happens with the main characters, and we like the characters, everything's going good, but instead they just chop it off at the end and just say, and everybody lived happily ever after, and, Samantha and Bill got married. And you'd be like, wow, that was boring. Like you'd want to hear like the rest of the story, more detail about, well, how did they get married? What happened after that? Like, so copy has to end with, when you introduce the product, you have to do it, with some connection, with some meaning, with some, some elements that make sense. It has to flow naturally. Anyways, I'm going beyond my point now, but anyway, drop me a line if you have any questions about this. I'm going to be putting more info out there about it at some point.